upload. Recording in progress. Okay. That's very good. Thank you so much for being here. So nice to see you again. Tuesday, It's the first time actually. I was like, how come I already did a lot of the other things? And these Tuesdays I haven't started yet, already. I mean, the third week of Sundays, but but actually here's because we had a puja, then I had a puja, and then now we are finally doing it. So it's all my fault. So I apologize for that. So the idea of these Tuesday classes is actually to go a little bit into the Lamrim. That is the goal. So when I was planning to do that, I was talking with Don, which is the person who talks organizes the spiritual program or the programs of teachings that we have at the center. And I was talking to Rebecca, and then said, oh, okay, so Thursday we're gonna do Lojong, which is a little bit more intense. We're gonna go through the text, in the next few weeks. So maybe we do something a little bit more introductory, and then we talk about, and I said, okay, let's do Lamrim. But I'm seeing who is here, and I'm like, well, you guys are super advanced and already can talk about, all of the highest yoga tantra things we can do here, very, very, like a high level of teachings. But in any case, I will definitely start slowly, to talk about the Lamrim, because it's very important that we understand the Lamrim context in the Tibetan Buddhism, why the Lamrim is such an important, it's not only a text, but it's a methodology that, especially in this tradition, which is the Gelupa tradition, why do we use it? Why do we use it as like a methodology, a framework for working, and studying the Buddha Dharma? Because that is how if we start to look into it, it is very important for us to start thinking, how the Lamrim can help us. What does it mean? How does it work? What it actually means, Lam means path, Rim to enlightenment, like graduate path. So what does it mean? So that's the idea of this series of talks that we're gonna have on Tuesdays. Okay? So it's important that I know it might be sometimes, you might know some of these, but Lamrim is definitely something that we should and we can listen to it again and again and again and again, and these will definitely create different imprints, because the more we learn about it, the more we understand it, the better can we can go a little bit deeper. You understand? It's like we can go a bit deeper into how things work and how it actually is, because sometimes we stayed in a superficial level in the first times we listen, but then we can go deeper. So for that, as we always say, is before we start really going into it, is always very important to generate a motivation, an intention, because without paying attention to the intention, we just give up to our autopilot, our status quo, our used to, our habitual tendencies of how our intention and motivation normally are, right? And that is why it's so profound to stop whatever we are doing before we start something, or even when we are already doing, and just stop and check with ourselves. We don't need to go outside. We don't need to be the motivation and intention police, but for ourselves. We can be the intention and motivation police to ourselves and say, wait a minute, why? Why am I doing this? What is the motivation for us to do this? So that is very important. So always, whenever we can, whatever we are doing, just to stop that, just to try to stop and ask ourselves these questions is, what am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to get from this? And not to judge, not to kind of beat ourselves up, but just to become aware. And by becoming aware with time and by developing and advancing on the Lamrim, we're going to be able to actually transform or to check and really put out there an intention that will bring something that we really can benefit from, right? Because right now, we think that we are benefiting from our selfish motivation. We think that we benefit when we are thinking about me, myself, and I only. We think that we are benefiting when we are kind of, just taking advantage of others, or diving or allowing our negative emotions to control ourselves. We really think, isn't it? Someone told me recently, but I like to feel anger. It is true. So if we let it allows those intentions of being angry and trying to act out of anger, if we allow this to actually be our motivation for doing whatever we are doing, we won't benefit for it in the end. And that is in a way what the Lamrim can show us. The Lamrim is a path that is directing us to the state of enlightenment. It's a specific state that only the Buddhists have? No, it's not. It is actually a specific path that the Buddha is telling that if you follow, you can achieve this result. It's just that. So that means that the result in itself is very important to understand what it is. So this is something that I feel that is very crucial when we are studying the Lamrim, and sometimes we forget. Because if it is a gradual path to enlightenment, we first need to understand enlightenment so we can actually decide if we want to walk this path, isn't it? If you know that if you take the Bright Line train and go to Orlando, and if you then after take a, I don't know, a bus or a car, you can get to Disney World. So if you know what Disney World is, then before you start and you say, oh, I'm going to have so much fun, it's going to be so nice and all of that. Okay, so if I know that, then I make the decision to buy the ticket, to go into the train, to take the bus, to take the car, to get there. Yes, makes sense? That is important. It's very important that we have this clarity, because it's by understanding the result is that we're gonna actually create the intention. Understanding the result that we can achieve is going to create the intention for us to wanting to achieve that result. And it is pretty much that what it is, the Lamrim. The Lamrim in some ways is going to work on our intention. Is going to work from the intention that we have right now, and is going to develop into stages. So when we talk about a path, we talk about a path that is an inner path in developing and expanding in some ways our intention. That is what the path is. We are developing our intention in towards the objective, towards the goal that we can get with the intention. Because right now, as I said, if we check our intention is to only benefit ourselves, or maybe our friends, or maybe our family, and that's it. And the type of benefit, or the type of help, or the type of love and compassion and kindness that we want to share or give, or the generosity we want to share with our friends and family, it's very limited. It's very impermanent. It's very temporary. So by understanding where we are at, understanding how our minds work, understanding what is that is our motivation and intention right now, the Lamrim will come as a set of other information or other types of teachings and understanding and philosophy and meditations that will give us the tools to develop this intention further and further until we develop the intention to achieve enlightenment. Because once we decide that we want to achieve enlightenment, once we really commit to that, as Lama Zopa used to say, even if you don't want, if you create the necessary causes and conditions, you're going to achieve enlightenment. It's just cause and effect. It's like if I board the train to go to Orlando, to Disney World, I'm going to get there. Even if I don't want, how many times, no? We've been in trains or situations that we don't want, but we still ended up going. And we ended up in those situations. But here's different. Here we want to achieve that situation. We want to go there. So that is why it's very important for us to understand what actually enlightenment is. And for that, we need to talk about the Buddha. We need to talk about that person that 2,600 years ago actually became the first of what we call enlightenment. At that time, enlightenment was very different. You know, they talked a lot about in the Hindu traditions. They had different words, but not enlightened. They had what we called liberated. They had the word nirvana. They had the word freedom, but not enlightened. Enlightened means, in that way, two aspects. The word Buddha in Tibetan, which is the one who awakened, the one who is enlightened, it is called Sangye. That is the word in Tibetan, Sangye. And this word, as Tibetans are very precise with their words, I love some of the Tibetan words, it's very special. For example, like airplanes. Airplanes are called cars with wings. That is how they create the word airplanes, because it flies, or it can fly, and it like brings you somewhere. I think this is very, very good. Or giraffe. Giraffe, if I'm not mistaken, is like a dog, the same word for dog, and long neck. I think it's very good. So they are very precise of what it means. So it's the same thing with the idea of Buddha, Sangye. So Sang, which is the first aspect of the Buddha, of the enlightened one, it means, it has the connotations, that the meaning of pure, of purified. That's what it means, Sang. Sang means completely free. Something that is pure. So then we need to think about it. Pure or free from what? Right? And that is why we need to start understanding that what the Buddha's understanding of what is being free of is so important. Actually, most of these path of Lamrim, or the spiritual, or the Buddhist Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, in all of these teachings, we say that the Buddha taught 84,000 teachings while he was alive. So all of these teachings was to get into these two aspects. Okay? So the Sang and the Ge. So the Sang is to eliminate, to purify, to be completely free of. Free of what? Of our suffering and its causes. Because the Buddha was completely done with suffering. Before he became a Buddha, for many, many lifetimes, if we want to say, he struggled with not having control of his own mind. He struggled and he got sick of being completely controlled of negative emotions. He got sick of having a misunderstanding of how things work. So he looked for a way, for a path that would eliminate the causes for the suffering and their causes to arise. So that is Sang. That is the first aspect. And then we talk about Gye. And Gye means perfect or perfected, who perfected their qualities. It is that idea of being completely full of, but not only full, is that perfected qualities. So that is also very important, because it's not only being free from suffering and its causes. That is why we say that enlightenment didn't exist before in that same terms before the Buddha, before 2,600 years ago, because most of the different spiritual paths, they were mainly focusing on the Sang. They would help us to eliminate our own suffering and the causes of our suffering, but they were not thinking about perfecting our qualities. And why do we want to perfect our qualities? Why do we need? What is the goal of that? Is to be or to have the best abilities, the best qualities in order to help others. So that is a very important aspect of enlightenment. What differentiates liberation and enlightenment is the wish to perfect our qualities, so we can not only be free from our suffering and the causes, but to be the best of ourselves to help others. So enlightenment, in a way, is a double aspect, which is helping us to be free from our suffering and its causes. So that helps us directly. And on top of that, if that is not enough, if that was not just like amazing in itself, it is still bringing the aspect of actually developing all of our qualities and being completely full of love, compassion, kindness, generosity, patience, wisdom, but not only for ourselves, directed to helping others. But helping others to do what? What the way they want? How the Buddha wants to help us? The Buddha wants to help us become a Sangye, become a Buddha. That's what the Buddha wants. The Buddha wants us to do the same thing. Wants us to purify our sufferings and its causes, and he wants us to perfect our qualities. So that is the path to enlightenment. The path to enlightenment is to help us to achieve the enlightenment state, so we can help others to achieve the same state of enlightenment, of Buddhahood, of becoming a Buddha. Do you understand that? Can you consider, can you really try to understand the vastness of that? It's not only the idea of feeling good and helping others in this life, or helping others to feel, warm and feel that people are like taken care of. All of that is definitely a part of the training, but that is not the goal. And this is very important for us to understand the goal, because at some point, when we are like following this path, if we forget that this is the goal, we might get stuck into immediate results, or we might get stuck in motivations or intentions that are lower than that. Do you understand what I mean? Bob has a face that he's, yes. Go on. Do you want to wait?
Yeah, you just lost me because you said
I
that,
saw you getting lost.
yeah, you said that helping others is not the goal.
No. I said that helping others is the goal, but helping others in this idea of what it means to help others in the Buddhist, in the Buddhahood, in the enlightenment way, it means that we want to help others to be free from suffering and its causes and to perfect their qualities. So that means that our goal, we get lost sometimes thinking more of maybe just thinking of stopping the immediate suffering of someone and not thinking in this entire aspect of the goal. You understand what I mean by that now?
Absolutely. Now I do. Thank you.
Because sometimes, and these I say, that's why I'm not very how can I say, I'm sometimes not very welcome in the Buddhist groups, because I really reinforce this point, because sometimes we do forget, we get lost, we
Yeah.
get lost in the small details, in kind of like being seen as the good people, a good person, and kind of like helping a little bit this just because we think that this is going to help. And I'm not saying that it's not going to help, but we need to have that long term view, that expanded view of enlightenment. And that is something that I always, I did an entire course, on a weekend course, when I was in Spain last year, teaching in Spain, about purpose. Because nowadays a lot of us, we sometimes, and especially I think younger people, they are a little bit lost of purpose. Or some people also have the middle age crisis, and they kind of like, they also don't know what they are doing in their lives, and they have some purpose of, it's normal. But because we don't have this aim of enlightenment, if we have this aim of enlightenment, we don't care about purpose anymore. We have clear what our purpose is. As Lama Yeshe used to say, clear what the purpose of our life is. Our purpose is to achieve enlightenment, and to achieve enlightenment to benefit others so they can achieve enlightenment. So this is one of the, main aspects of the spiritual path, the Buddhist spiritual path. Because if we don't understand that, then we don't understand the path itself. If I don't understand that I actually want to get there, so then I don't understand the path that I need to follow. Because the path, if we can actually divide, and we're going to do a little bit different, is that the path right now, if we needed to divide in, we can divide it in two wings or two tracks. A path that is gonna help us develop or achieve the first aim, which is sang, purify, eliminate, be free of, right? And another track that will help us perfect our qualities. Does it make sense? Are you following? Yes? Yeah. So these two is what we also call the two wings of a bird, A bird can fly to enlightenment if it has these two tracks, these two wings developed. So these two wings, or these two tracks, are in order to achieve these two qualities of enlightenment, of Buddhahood, of being a Buddha, Sang and Gye. So to achieve the first one, okay, which is to purify our minds, to eliminate its causes, so we are free from that. We're going to develop wisdom. We need to develop a certain specific type of wisdom that will be able to eliminate completely the suffering and its causes. So the path, when we are going to talk about the Lamrim, we're going to be developing that wisdom in different ways. We're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the development of that wisdom. Because that wisdom is going to help us to then eliminate that. But that is not enough. That would bring us, as I said, to be equal to a Hindu or different spiritual traditions, which is just to be free from suffering. But we are greedy. We Buddhists, we are greedy. We don't want only that. We don't want only being suffering for we be free from our suffering and its causes. We want to perfect ourselves so we can be the best version of ourselves to help others to do the same. So for that, for us to perfect our qualities, for us to expand, to completely being unconditional and unlimited our qualities, to develop them in that power, in that potential, we need to develop bodhicitta, that mind of enlightenment. And then we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk a lot about the bodhicitta mind, which means that I want to achieve enlightenment in order to benefit others. And that will counteract everything that makes our minds right now conditioned or limited or selfish. So in other words, it's the altruistic mind. So then, with these two tracks, with these two paths, with the development of these two tracks and these two paths of wisdom, we eliminate the suffering and its causes. And with the development and perfection of altruistic mind, we perfect our qualities in order to become the better versions, to have the most skillful means, tools to help others so they can also achieve these two things. But like everything else in life, if I don't know how to play a guitar or a piano, or if I don't know how to operate someone, if I don't know how to speak a language, I cannot teach others, isn't it? I can even teach sometimes, like me, I'm here teaching some sort of dharma by blah, 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 blah. I can speak the words. But in order to truly benefit you, I need to develop those qualities in my mind. So it's the same in some ways with, for example, a surgeon, if he doesn't know how to cut, even though he might know the words and he might know the how do you say the intellectual aspect of it, if he doesn't know, if he never cutted someone, he will never be able to explain to you how to do it. Okay, Bob?
Can you explain a little bit what you mean by develop wisdom, please?
Okay, yes. Well, this is going to be what we're going to talk about the entire path in a way. Because in some ways, developing the wisdom is the true or unique feature of the Buddhist path, if you think about it. Because the development of altruistic mind, lots of other religions and philosophies, they also have it. There is a certain difference, which is because they are not in bed or they are not conjoined with that wisdom. So these two united together is what brings that special characteristic of Buddhahood, of enlightenment. But the wisdom aspect is what we're going to talk about, because we can just develop, a wisdom that will liberate us from suffering and its causes, or we can develop a wisdom that will bring us to enlightenment. So this is also different. So this is something that we're going to talk more and more and more, and we're going to dive into it. So for that, we need to really, because this is very important, because these two, wings or tracks are what actually started after the Buddha passed away, 2,600 years ago, to be developed. Some people, some of his previous students, started to develop more that wisdom wing or their wisdom track, and they become completely experts on that. And some develop more the compassion or the method, as we call, the altruistic, the bodhicitta track, the bodhicitta wing, So these mainly were what we call the Indian and the Nalanda tradition. So the Nalanda tradition were those first students, first kind of like, first students of the Buddha after the Buddha passing away in the first, second century or fourth century, before Christ. AD is before Christ or after Christ? It's after Christ? After Christ, right? So after Christ. So then you have, of course, AD after Christ. Yeah, makes sense. So, so then what happens is that those tracks, so it was mainly developing one and mainly developing another. So it started to be a bit kind of like missing, let's put it like that. Okay? Missing some sort of union again of these two tracks. The Buddha was not here anymore to guide them, so people started to go in a certain way. So in the wisdom track, we talk about the Nalanda tradition and the Nalanda masters, and especially a very special teacher called Nagarjuna of the 2nd century. Nagarjuna was a main exposer, we call trailblazer, let's call it like that, of explaining in detail the wisdom method or the wisdom track. And then on the compassion altruistic track, we had Asanga from the 4th century. And he was the one mainly developing that altruistic. But here, we are studying the Lamrim, the gradual path to enlightenment. And the Lamrim came in the 1900s, 900s, yes, 982, with Atisha, this Indian master who started to actually unite these two teachings, these two tracks, unite the wisdom and the compassion and the altruistic method in a way that will be useful for people. Especially that was the time when Buddhism was starting to slow down and decrease in Tibet. So he was called to go to Tibet and to teach the Buddha Dharma in Tibet. So he said, I need something that is useful, something that is easy to kind of like understand and grasp, and something that would have these two methods, these two tracks together. So he wrote a very special text called The Lamp on the Path to Enlightenment. And this text is the entire Lamrim in steps, let's say by that. Is the set of meditations, is the set of philosophy of what we call study, contemplation, and meditation. To do what? To develop and to guide our mental states into more and more nourish and perfect our good qualities, and to more and more develop and perfect our wisdom from where we are now until we achieve the Sung and the Gay, the purified mind and the mind full of qualities. So the Lamrim, this lamp of the path to enlightenment, has been presented again and again since that, since 982, 1000 and something, that time of the world has been presented and has been proved, because has been studied, contemplated, and meditated on since that time from hundreds, thousands of people who have benefited from that. So, and then more and more some teachers, Tibetan teachers, and especially a very special one called Lama Tsongkhapa, which is the founder of this lineage and this tradition, this type of school that we are here, the Gelugpa school, in the 13th century, 13th century? No, 14th century. I'm very bad at these. In the 14th century, he really created a presentation, arranged in a systematic, sequential, gradual order. First you do this, then you do that, then you go that, then you go that. So that became a very specific way, for a very systematic way, which is very good for us Westerns. So if we wish to practice, there is little danger for making mistakes or for doing things in a certain different way. Okay? Does it make sense so far? Any questions or any doubts or any commentaries, anything? Yes, Bob.
What was that called?
This is the Lamrim.
No, is that, so that's what he created in 1400.
So in 1400, what Lama Tsongkhapa created specifically, he created 3 commentaries on the Lamrim, let's say like that, okay? So because it was needed, so he created the, what we call the short Lamrim, the middle length Lamrim, and the Lamrim Chenmo, the in Tibetan, Lamrim Chenmo is like the long, or the wait, how is it translated? Is the the long version, let's say like this. So that means that he went into levels of details. And now we are very fortunate that actually we have the translation of these books that only existed, in the 14th century in Tibetan, and has been translated now, and we have big books explaining all of that.
How do you spell Lamrim?
Lamrim.
Thank you.
So actually at the center, at the library of the center, we do have the Lamrim Chenmo, which is, I'm gonna remember after how is the translation of it, which is very special, very, very special. But what happened is that our minds became so confused, and we became even more attracted to external things, to objects. We developed a lot in the external world, and we didn't give so much attention to our inner world, that our minds started to need more and more commentaries, or commentary of the commentary of the commentary. So we could understand what the teachings were saying, because if you read the lamp of the path, it's a very short. Actually, there are a lot of short versions of the Lamrim, teachings like, texts like the 3 principal aspects of the path, or the foundation of all good qualities, and all of these are Lamrim texts. But if you read it, you get a little bit of it. So you need someone, and you need the commentary of the commentary of the commentary. So I am no place to do any commentary of anything. I cannot even comment myself, comment my like a text, but I'm going to try to give the essence of that. And not only the essence, but the essence in a way that we can relate to our daily lives. We need to bring that understanding from the 13th, from the 10th century into a 21st century use. Because otherwise, Buddha Dharma is not going to continue. If we don't make it useful and we don't apply to our minds living in the context that we are at. So that is very important. So that is why we always say that when we start to learn about the Lamrim, when we start to listen to it, we need to see that those teachings in a direct and indirect and indirect way, direct and indirect way, they are the Buddha's teachings. They come from the Buddha. So we were saying what the Buddha wanted, what the Buddha wants. The Buddha wants us, as we said, to achieve the state of a Buddha, right? We talked about that. We said that. So the Buddha wants that. So what we should try to get, or the way we should try to understand these teachings, is that to try to use them, we should listen to these teachings with this idea that everything is a personal instruction to you. So, you should analyze it, investigate it, and especially apply it to your mind, your context, your life. Because the Buddha said, don't take anything for granted. Don't blindly believe in everything that I'm saying. As we say about someone gives you, the the example they give in the text, because the texts are old, is like, if someone gives you a piece of gold, you would try to check, you would kind of like scratch it, you would bite it, you would kind of like, melt it to see if it was really gold. Nowadays we don't do that. But if someone would give you a car, or you'd give you a cryptocurrency, you know you would try to investigate it and analyze it and check what it is, how it works, if it is a good thing or not. No, you would not just take it because someone gives you something, you just take it like that. You need to check. So that is very important. We ask, we have doubts, we check if it makes sense, and we apply to our mind. That is very important, that we try to apply it to our own mind, and not that we should be focusing of what others should be doing, or if they are practicing or not, if they are good Buddhists, good practitioners, bad students, good students. Not like this. Actually, there is either student or not student. There's either practicing Dharma or not practicing Dharma. There's no good or bad. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yes? Because otherwise, we start to forget that those instructions, because sometimes it can be too intellectual or too, how do I bring this to my own life? But we should always try to pay attention to our own mind. Because the more we learn about one of the topics of the Lamrim, the more the entire path becomes clear, and the more we can advance further and deeper and really get into our goal of enlightenment. So that is one of the main points when we start. So also it's so important that when we start, to talk about the Lamrim, that we start to understand more and more that goal. Because right now we say, oh, okay, enlightenment, oh, okay, eliminate the suffering on this cause, oh, okay, but we don't feel it yet. We don't really believe it's possible. Or we have a doubt sometimes, what does it mean and how we can get, or what, we are still doubting. That's good. We should doubt. But the more we follow, the more we learn about Lamrim, we start to understand what was the Buddha's intention on when he started to teach. Why he decided to teach a path that leads beings to enlightenment. We start to understand what enlightenment really means, what are its characteristics, why is it possible to achieve it. And something that I find it absolutely special when we start to to learn about the Lamrim is that we can immediately see the benefits it can bring. Because when we start to talk about, the Lamrim, we start to talk about the mind, and then we start to talk about, like having a precious rebirth. And then we start to talk about, death. And when we talk about, how we can be reborn. And then we start to talk about, how to develop an intention to be free from suffering, how we start to develop an intention to open our hearts, to develop compassion, to develop equanimity, to develop love and kindness, all of that. When we go through these meditations, when we go through this, we immediately start to feel its benefits. We are still not enlightened, but we feel the benefits just by studying, by contemplating, by meditating on these topics of the Lamrim. We can already feel the benefits of studying the Lamrim and decreasing our suffering, and decreasing the grasping, or the hook of the causes that makes us suffer. And we can see how we become more patient, more kind, more loving, everything. So it's not something that we need to wait until we get to the final point to see its benefit. That is to keep us going, right? It's the fuel that we need. So we get our right hand put on the left shoulder and say, yes, well done. Rejoice, really take advantage or enjoy and have finding happiness or pleasure or joyfulness in following this path. That is important, because otherwise, it's going to be a lot of work to undo the set of habitual tendencies that we have. So if we don't enjoy it, if we don't see the benefits, if we don't experience the benefits now, we might not even want to get the long-term benefit. So it's important that we get that. So it's important that we try our best to develop this awareness of automatically, by following the Lamrim, we start to really see the benefits, how it's beneficial for us. And this will give us, this discernment as well, this start of developing this inner wisdom within ourselves to decide, as I say, how do we want to fulfill our purpose? How do we want to live our lives? So that is very important. And when we're gonna go through the Lamrim as well, we're gonna kind of like get some teachings that they might seem contradictory. Okay? That means that sometimes we might think, but the Buddha was saying, this or that, or oh, how does this actually? He was saying that the aim is to, be free from suffering. And then he talks about enlightenment. How are they they're contradicting? Well, we need to have in mind that the Buddha taught 84,000 for different people in different needs and different levels. So for some, he would say something, you should practice meditation. And for others, he would say, you shouldn't practice meditation, but you should practice service, or you should study, or you should do this. So they're not contradictory in itself, but they are directed to different people. So that's why the point that I said about investigating, analyzing, and applying to our minds will give us that understanding, will give us that discernment of how to apply those every teaching into our own lives. Does it make sense? Yes? So, any other questions or any commentaries, or let me ask you a question so you guys can answer me, because otherwise you stay very quiet over there. Um, do you understand do you understand the potential of the Lamrim?
Yes.
So what is the potential of the Lamrim?
The potential of the Lamrim is to learn how to perfect the wisdom and the altruism and bring them together so that we can be on the path with baby steps towards integrating it into our lives on
Yes.
the illusionary goal of becoming enlightened.
Very good. I like it, the illusionary goal. In the beginning, it is an illusionary goal. Sometimes Lama Zopa used to say, sometimes we need to kind of like do pretending, altruism or pretending at something, because in the beginning, it does feel like that because it seems so
but but
far.
but
But the
it's
more we
really
go approaching, right?
more what?
The more we approach, the more we kind of like go towards that goal. The It's like, when you are like in the street, and there's like not so much light, and you see something at the end of the street, opposite from you, and you're like, what is that? Like, I like, looks like a person, and then you don't know, and then you go walking more towards that person, and then you start to see more. Oh yes, yeah, okay, it's a man. Oh, okay. Oh, he has like a bit of white hair. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, he's like a little bit skinny and all of that. Oh, okay. He has it. Oh, I think that guy is Bob. Oh yeah, okay, Bob is my friend. So you go like closer and closer, so then you get more and more quality, and then you actually can interact with that, right? Then you can say, oh, okay, I'm happy that I didn't see Bob. Then I can have, I can believe it's Bob. Then I can have an interaction. So it's a little bit like that, you know? Right
But
now,
it's
the
also
enlightenment looks like so far away, you know?
but it's also like you say, to it's the path to become a better person, step by
Exactly.
step.
That's exactly what it is. It's just that the Buddhist teachings are kind of like, in some ways, describing what a better person might be. We have the potential, which is to become a Buddha, you know? And the description of becoming a better person is not only in this life, is not only for a little while, is not only, just like being kind to our friends and all of that, but he's saying, actually, to become the best version of ourselves and the best, human being possible, is to be completely perfect with your own qualities and be completely free from any suffering or any selfishness, so you can use your body, speech, and mind to help others to be free from suffering and to achieve and to perfect their qualities. So it's a little bit specific in that sense. Does it make sense? Do you understand? Do you agree?
Yes.
Tao, Alex, do you agree with that? Tao, yes.
Yes, I do. I do. I know it has endless potential. My experience with my own practice is that I have spurts of, you know, deep connection to the practice and inspiration and little insights, glimmers of insights. And then I'll have kind of a dull period where I don't feel connected to the practice. I do it anyway. I have these practices that I do, but I don't feel connected to it. It's almost like a dip in the practice. And then it kind of, it's like this. It's
Yes. Totally, totally. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is exactly how it is.
that's
You know, it's
normal,
funny.
right?
Sorry?
Is that normal?
Totally normal.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Welcome to being a perfect human being and a perfect Buddhist, you know? It's exactly like this. Sometimes we have so much disconnection with the practice because we sometimes, and I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes it's because we forget about this long-term goal, you know, and the benefits of it. And sometimes as well is because during the practice we forget to check or to recognize how it is actually helping us, right? We ended up putting, because it's normal, it's like in the beginning it's just like another activity, you know, a mundane activity that we are doing. So we're gonna bring all our mundane ways of seeing and approaching things, right? We're gonna kind of like yeah, yes, you know, get some more intellectual understanding, but then we don't actually put it to practice, you know. So we start to kind of like see, but the more we start to get and to understand the essence of it, and we start to feel the change in ourselves, right? We might not still be completely perfect, we might still lose our temper with our kids, with our partners, with our family, with members, you know, with our parents, like me, you know, here with my parents. It's like, but you have tools to deal with it in a beneficial way. So, you know, and before, the way we would deal with things, we would be in a beneficial way, maybe for only ourselves. But now, because we have a bit of more Dharma, the way we're going to deal with these things might be more towards enlightenment for myself and others, right? And these already starts to become more juicy and say, wow, okay, I got mad, but I didn't stay mad for 24 hours. I only stayed mad for 23 hours, and that's fine. That's better than, you know, 24. So we just go like that. So it's totally normal. And that's why it's so important to continue in some ways studying, contemplating, meditating, serving during retreat, or, you know, sometimes we need to do more service, more with our hands and, you know, help others and something more direct, or sometimes we need to study more. We need to be more, you know, get that feeling of what works better for us depending on our, yeah, where we are at, you know? So that's perfect. Totally normal. Totally normal. Thank you so much for sharing, dear. Thank you. Alex, you wanted to say, oh, Dan wanted to say something.
I just like with the Lamrim how it encompasses both Hinayana and Mahayana teachings. So that's a
Yes.
great history, providing the complete picture of the Buddhist path. So that to me seems very interesting.
Yes, yes, you're completely true. You know, that is the thing, that the Lamrim is a complete path. Is actually the entire path from, you know, from A to Z. You know, it is from what we call the Hinayana path, which is, you know, the what we're gonna talk about it, you know, with the idea of being free from suffering. And it is about the Mahayana path, which is sharing or developing that wish to be free from suffering and perfect our qualities so we can help others, right? So these two motivations. So we're gonna talk about. I don't want to get into it now because we are almost done. You know that, but the idea is that next week we're gonna see how what the Lamrim is about is mainly focus on the intention and motivation. So developing these three scopes, these three types of motivation, these three levels. I don't like to use the word levels, but it is in some ways, you know? And then from there, we go developing, because of the different topics and different meditations and studies, we go developing them and, you know, perfecting them. And then, oh, okay, so that I accomplished that motivation, but that motivation is not the end. Oh, okay, there is these other motivation, these other scope. Oh yeah, and then I have and then I achieve the lasting, you know, goal of enlightenment. So that is what it is about. You know, we're gonna start talking about that next week. Yes, Alex, share with us.
I just wanted to share that what I like from the Lamrim is like it's a very good summary, let's say, because I haven't read the original text,
Mhm.
and I know it's 84,000 teachings, something like that. So somebody took that time to do the summary for us, and at the same time, Amazon have organized again the summary. So
Yes.
I think that it's a precious jewel, I would say, from the
Yes.
Tibetan Buddhism.
It is. It is. It's definitely something that is so precious. You know. That's why we are a little bit, a little bit of a freak. You know, the freakies. You, the Tibetan, the Buddhist with teachings and books and, you know, texts. That's why we always try to put, you know, the text on you know on top of, you know, something, or we see it as something, because those words and those texts, they have in it, in the content of it, the entire path to enlightenment, right? The path to our freedom from our suffering and its causes. And they have the tools, or the key to our perfection of our qualities and our altruistic mind and heart. So that's why you know, we should be careful or appreciative of the text in itself. And that's why, as you said very beautifully, you know, next week I'm going to talk a little bit more, just briefly, about Atisha, how he was so special in doing that. You know, the amount of obstacles and hardships that he had to go through to actually develop, you know, and perfect these two tracks, these two wings, so we could be here literally 1,500 years later, you know, or yeah, 1,000 and something years later, you know, that we can be here receiving tools and meditations and topics and knowledge that will bring us to be free from our own suffering and to help us develop our qualities, perfect our qualities. So it's very special. It is. We should definitely appreciate that. Okay, dears. Any more questions or commentaries or doubts or considerations? I said that because we are doing online, I'm trying to keep it to 1 hour and 10 and 15 max. So you guys don't get tired, and also you guys can, you know, have an early dinner. So you guys can sleep. So yes, if you can, or if you want, just, you know, start to get familiarized with that idea of the lamrim. Try to kind of like say, oh, okay, a path, what does it mean, a path? What does it mean to think about having a path and, you know, following a path for me? You know, and could the lamrim be an option? Just be very open, very, very open. Even you all that know already the lamrim, you know, Tao, Alex, just have that in mind. It's like, oh yeah, okay, like, is it, why is lamrim my path? Why do I want to follow that path? You know, just to try to make your your decision, you know, is very important. Okay, I hope that anything that I said was in any way beneficial, helped in any way. I don't know, maybe just parrot here, repeating all the words that I had the chance to hear from all my teachers. You know, that's the most kind. That's why the teachers are so kind, because they teach us the Lamrim. You know, that's why I'm so fortunate to have received these teachings from my teachers, especially Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Kandrila, Ling Rinpoche, and His Holiness. You know, I had the special opportunity to receive teachings on the Lamrim from His Holiness. So I really, really, really hope that these teachings can be beneficial for you as well. And any problems, any worries, or any wrong things are coming from me, not from the teaching. So don't give up on them because I am blah 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 and like a parrot. Okay. So thank you so much. I see you next week. Tomorrow morning, 7:30, we have meditation. On Thursday, we have Lojong. And Sunday, we have our teachings. So otherwise, I see you next Tuesday. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you. See you
Thank you.
Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you at the bakery.